So I'd like to add a little bit to what Todd was saying. So there are actually three causes of suffering: desire, anger, and ignorance. And ignorance does not mean that you don't know the capital of Zimbabwe. It means that you are ignorant, or we are ignorant of our self-nature. And Todd was talking about eating the apple of good and evil, and what you said, the creation story. There are many creation stories. That's just the one that comes out of the Torah, right? Okay, all right. But anyway, so but it's also sometimes called the tree of knowledge. That this apple is knowledge, and so that knowledge is the useless knowledge, like the capital of Zimbabwe, and not the useful knowledge, which is knowledge of our true nature. So we get distracted. And some people say that desire is more fundamental, and some people say that ignorance is more fundamental. Nobody ever says that anger is more fundamental, though anger is incredibly seductive. It feels so good to be angry, you know? You know you exist when you're angry. We also desire, anger, and ignorance. And I want to talk a little bit about this ignorance. So a long time ago, let's see, it would have been 43 years ago, my son was about 2, and he was hanging out with Dennis Durmeyer, one of the other teachers here, his son Ian, and they were watching some crappy movie on TV. It was a sword and sandals thing, you know, where people were chopping each other up with swords and fighting each other and yelling and stuff like that. And Ian turned to the grown-ups in the room and said, "Why are they doing this?" And I started explaining the plot. And Carol, now Carol Marshall, who is then Dennis's wife, Ian's mother, said, "Because they're stupid." So we're really stupid. You know, we make up all this stuff and we hold on to it, and we have these stories, and then we enact these stories, and people die, and they starve, and they're raped, and all kinds of horrible things happen because we tell these stories. And we can't just say, "Oh, we're really stupid." We can't name what's actually happening because it has all that stuff covering it up, these stories that we make, that we believe. So I just wanted to say that. Thank you for your wonderful talk. Are there any questions? Yes. And the microphone makes its way down, and then after Austin, Carol on the line. Okay.
Saving all sentient beings is difficult work. There is a saying, when compassion is overwhelmed, it does not retreat, it grows its capacity to help. I was wondering if you could speak on how we do that when we are feeling overwhelmed.
What is overwhelming you?
Gossip.
Yeah, I know. I know your personal situation, yeah. Yeah. So, sometimes we're in a difficult situation. And sometimes maybe it won't turn out the way we want it to. But if you hold on to wanting to make it turn out the way you want it to, then if it doesn't, you have a real problem. So being overwhelmed means you have an idea of how you want things to be, and you can't see your way to that. Or you see your way to that, but it's beset with great difficulty, and you're not sure you can do it. But if your center is strong, then whatever happens is okay. You know, oh, what is her name? That domestic goddess person who went to jail on a Martha Stewart. So Martha Stewart, she was top of the world, and she did something, possibly did or didn't, but she was found guilty of doing something shady in the stock market, and she went to jail. And I'm sure that before she went to jail, she was probably freaking out about it because, it's not the kind of thing that people like Martha Stewart expect to happen. But she went to jail, and it really opened her eyes to the way a lot of people are in this world that she hadn't realized. The situations that people face, the difficulties that people have. And she got very active in things like, educating people in prison and prison reform and stuff like that. So whatever happens, you can use it. So have that faith. Have that faith that even if things are difficult, that whatever happens, you can use it. And then the results of this gossip, the results of what people are saying about you, maybe they'll keep saying about you, maybe you won't be able to stop it. Maybe all kinds of, you lose friends, people lose jobs, they use education, they lose all kinds of things. But if your center is strong and you really believe in yourself, then whatever it is, you use it just like Martha Stewart used it. Okay? So good luck. Yeah, it's hard. Carol.
Thank you, Judy. This question is really alive for me right now.
Okay.
You recommend how to work with a koan, please?
Okay. So the first way to work with a koan is to actually work with it with a teacher. You can't work on koans by yourself because we love to deceive ourselves. So if you work on a koan by yourself and you don't have anyone to check your mind, then I'm sure the answer. That's it, I'm done, But sometimes when we do that, we're just sort of strengthening our delusion of self when we do that. So the first thing is to work with a teacher, or more than one teacher, which is the case here. Then if you work with a koan, it's not, so koans are, not everyone knows, in Japan they're called koans, and that's the word that maybe most Americans are used to because the Japanese were the first to practice Zen Buddhism with non-Japanese people in North America, and so their terminology sort of became standard, like even saying Zen, that's the Japanese word. Korean it's Son, in Chinese it's Chan, in Vietnam is Tien. But anyway, so a koan is, it's a story. Like a monk asked Zen Master Jiazhu, does a dog have Buddha nature? And Jiazhu said, mu, which means no or has not. In contemporary Chinese it would be wu, but this was Tang Dynasty, so it was mu. And that's the koan, and then there are questions attached to it. Like in Rinzai, the question you're asked is, what is mu? And we asked 3 questions. Does a dog have Buddha nature? Joju said mu, what does this mean? And Buddha said all things have Buddha nature. Joju said a dog does not have Buddha nature, which one is correct? So there are these questions that are attached. And when Carol says, how do you work on a koan, she doesn't mean work on the story, she means work on one of those questions. So if you come on Saturday morning and we have koan interviews, you come to a retreat, we have koan interviews, and then you will be asked a question. And you're expected to come up with an answer. Maybe the teacher approves, maybe the teacher doesn't approve, but you're expected to respond. So how do you work with it? Well, you don't work by analyzing. I mean, to take this question, does a dog have Buddha nature? If you say yes, you're wrong. If you say no, you're wrong. If you say yes and no, you're wrong. If you say not yes and also not no, you're also wrong. That's called the tetralemma. it means you're screwed. You can't do it from here. And that's the only hint I'm going to give you. So how do you do it? Well, you do it from here, but that's a little abstract. But even in meditation, we keep our energy. Instead of our energy here, instead of our energy here, we keep our energy here. That's why we have this mudra, because we're surrounding this tian tian. In Chinese and Japanese, it's hara, and in Korean, it's tanjin. So it means energy garden. So we're surrounding this, our center. It's 3 fingers below the belly button, right there. We surround it with our mudra. And when we feel our energy rise up, we just, almost like gravity, we let it settle down. And then you have a koan, that you're working on, that you've been asked and you're trying to respond to. And some teachers recommend every time you sit, you spend some time with this koan, maybe the first 5 minutes or so of your sitting. And then in Japanese rinzai, you spend your entire meditation, it's just this koan. Or Joji said, "Mu, what does this mean?" Or "What is mu?" That just becomes your meditation practice. What I recommend is just let it arise naturally. And not necessarily even when you're on the cushion, or as some of us in this room, in a chair, but not necessarily even during formal meditation. Like, you could be driving down the road and suddenly Dasadagga Buddha nature arises. Be washing dishes. Be on your computer doing email. Who knows? For those of us old enough to do email. And the way I think of it is, I don't know if you can see this ring. It's my engagement ring. Because I told my husband I didn't like diamonds because I didn't want to marry him, so he got me a sapphire. And I don't know if you can see it, but if I move it, there's not enough light in this room, but if there was light in this room, you would see it sparkle in different ways, as I move it. And it's just you're looking at it. Oh, it is sparkling a little. It doesn't show on screen. And you move it and you just look at it, And the classical Chinese, way back to the Tang Dynasty or maybe even before, the classical image in ancient Chinese Chan is you have a pearl in your hands and you are just moving, the pearl back and forth and observing it. So you're just observing it. You're just looking at it, and you're looking at it from different sides. Sort of maybe like a sculptor. They've done a little bit of work and they're walking around to see what it looks like. So that's what I recommend. You just look at it. Just observe it. And then when it naturally goes down, go down. I don't recommend making it your focus, forcing yourself to look at it. But as I say, in Rinzai Zen, that is what they recommend. So you find your own way. And also, you notice I didn't talk a lot about answering a koan, I said responding to it. Because you're meeting your teacher's mind. So your teacher will approve and some answers and not approve other answers. And another teacher might approve some of the answers that the first teacher didn't approve. So it's not like these are answers in the back of a book. It's responding in the moment to the person in the room with you, which is very important in our life. So often we have very fixed ideas of how things should be, and then we respond according to our fixed ideas, and we can't actually see the person in front of us. Now, this happened to me the other day. I was, I'm old, I'm an old lady, and I was in the grocery store, and I was checking out of the self-checkout, and the guy asked me, "Do you need help?" And I said, "No, I don't need help." What are you talking about? And then I went out, with my cart to my car, and there was a very young woman, next to me, putting her stuff in her car. And then she looked at me and said, "May I carry your cart to the corral?" And I said, "No," you know. And I was just like, you know, what do you think I am? Am I helpless? Of course I can take my cart to the corral and then walk back. So then I told our son about this. And he was horrified. He said, "Mom, these people were trying to be nice. They were trying to be helpful. You took something away from them. Do you understand that you took something away from them?" I was like, "Oh, no, I didn't." So I put it up on Facebook. I said, "Okay, you know, compare and contrast, you know." And some of my friends said, "Oh, yeah, I can't stand it when people do it." And some said, "Oh, no, you should always say thank you and let them do it, you know." It was very interesting. So, you know, that's what our minds do all the time. We're so caught up in our ideas of how things should be. So koan interviews, it's meeting someone. And I could talk about koans for hours because, I mean, they're wonderful. We face our sense of inadequacy. Notice I didn't say we face our inadequacy. We face our sense of inadequacy. And we go, you know, because most of the time the teacher does not approve your answer. And I mean, that happens to everybody. And so that experience of having someone say, no, 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 you know, and we don't try to be nice about it. We don't try to be mean about it either, just very straightforward, you know. And everyone wants to be approved of. And so you're facing that. That's one of the hindrances, you know, wanting to be approved of. You know, money, sex, fame, sleep, and wanting to be approved of. I'm sorry, fame is that. Fame is wanting to be approved of. So it's money, sex, sleep. What's the other one that I'm leaving out?
Fame.
Pardon?
Fame.
I couldn't, oh, it,
Fame.
I said food. Charlie, somehow I'm not understanding what you're saying. Oh, pain. No, that's not one of them. So money, what? Oh, yeah, fame is the same as wanting to be liked.
Right, but you didn't list fame.
I said wanting to be liked. That's the same.
So money?
You've listed all four in three at a time.
Okay, all right, anyway, okay. Judy can't count. But yeah, so wanting to be liked, wanting to be approved of is one of them. And, you know, our sense of self gets shattered because most of us don't go around thinking of ourselves as people who make mistakes, get it wrong, you know. So it's just a fabulous practice. It's a fabulous practice. Getting your teacher's approval is the smallest part of it. You know, getting it right is the smallest part of it. We just get to face ourselves. And it's, you know, face our demons in a certain way that, and there's no consequences. Doesn't affect our job or our relationships or our health or anything like that. You know, it's a fabulous, fabulous practice. I encourage people to do that.
Judy, your answer was so insightful to me. You have no idea. Just perfect for
Oh,
me.
well, thank you. See, my ego just went up a notch.
I know.
Big fan.
Very,
You know.
very intuitive to what I needed right now.
Okay, thank you. Okay, and we are now, yes, you have a question? Because, well, if we can stretch it out a little longer. Okay.
So the causes of suffering are desire, anger, and ignorance. But it's also been said that the real problem is attachment to desire and attachment to anger and ignorance. So if you could change the second noble truth, would you reword it that way?
Actually, some people say that it's the 12 links of the chain of codependent origination. Some people say that that's the cause. You can call it anything you want.
Okay.
All right? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Zen is not about doctrine. Right? And you have to be very careful when you use this word attachment, because attachment is a word that has actually several subtly different meanings. And so people might think that that non-attachment means you can't love somebody. You can't love your partner, you can't love your parents, you can't love your children, you can't love your siblings, you can't love, that's not what it means. So what attachment means is attaching to this idea of self. And non-attachment means not letting this idea of self control us. So there's a line in the temple rules. If you break the wall of self, you become infinite in time and space. And everybody loves that because you think, oh, it means I rule the universe. No, it doesn't mean that. You know? It's not like there was an old Star Trek in the early days where, you know, Captain Kirk is seduced by some shimmering, it's sort of like a shimmering triangle with a seductive voice. He says, you know, come join me and we'll rule the universe. But that's not. But if you break the wall of self, then everything can come in and everything can come out. You become infinite in time and space. Okay?
Okay.
So that's a good way to end. We'll all break the wall of self, become infinite in time and space. Thank you.